Hello Crafty Crandall fam. It is finally here. The moment that you've been waiting for, me finally reacting to and taking all of your suggestions on my not broken anymore Caran Neocolor 2 Aquarelle video. I have been really excited about this video based on the fact that you guys really seem to like this art supply, and I desperately want to like this art supply because they're so convenient just being able to take your watercolor out with you. So that's the plan. At the end of this video, we are going to go out into nature and paint from life using your suggestions. So first, let's hop into what the comments were and test run them a little bit before we use them on a full-scale painting. I went through every comment that was left, appreciated every single one of them, and wrote down the ones that suggested various applications of this art supply. Step one, let's find them and hope that they're not broken again. It has been a little while since we've used them, and so, moment of truth. They appear to still be intact, mostly, which is impressive. Cool, let's give them a shot. So this first tip that I got was for the Caran palette from Carrie AA7130. Caran sells a palette that has two sides on it, so you can paint on it on one side and then mix your colors on the other. Now, I don't have that yet. I might buy it, but then I got a great comment from Inkenhafner7187 that you can also use a cutting board with a rough surface. That I do have. However, I actually use this thing for cooking. So I'm not going to use it for this because I don't want to contaminate it. But you can see here why it is a rough surface, because I've used it so many times to cut so many things. And you can hear that. There were a couple of different suggestions regarding using sandpaper. So I have this, which I use for my blending stumps, but I'm going to see if I can use a knife and cut into this palette that I don't use very frequently to make this into a rougher surface like that, so that I can kind of use this to shave down some of these. Additionally, I got several comments that said to just shave off bits from here, so that's why I've got another knife, and we're gonna try that in a different well here. This was pretty simple to do and really did not take very long at all. Much better. For comparison. So now we can try to see if we get the ability to utilize this. That looks nice. Okay, so now we can essentially just use these like a watercolor, which will also allow us to mix colors a lot easier. Nice. Okay, so that'll be really cool. Let's try it on some paper. A person named KellyRow77 told me to use 100% cotton paper. So I have a 100% cotton hot press paper here. This is the sketchbook I did the background for my song Lifeless in. So we'll try this paper. In addition, I also have 100% cotton cold press paper here as well. So we will try both. All right, so we've got our cold press paper, our hot press paper, and our palette, and our purple that we've already mixed. I am using a stiffer brush than I used in the first video, based on a comment that I got from Dees3179 to use a stiffer, flatter brush. Also, SPKTME said the stiffer brush as well. So I got multiple comments regarding the brushes that I was using. That is a beautiful purple on the hot press paper. Oh, you feel an immediate difference on the cold press paper. Let's zoom in. So looking at just the maroon color, gorgeous. And then on the hot press paper, also gorgeous. Okay, so I feel like that was a really great tip to switch to 100% cotton paper, because last time I just used one of the sketchbooks that I have. Let's add some blue here. Mix it on paper. So no real difference in the vibrancy of the colors, but you can definitely see the difference in the grain of the paper and how it absorbs. I will say I don't like how you're then stuck with this color more or less on the palette. We'll have to try in a minute to wash this off and see how well it washes off. But first, I do kind of want to do the gradient that we had in the sunset. Oh no, our first casualty. That's okay, because we've got another tip for this later. Yes, I know, I'm a dork, but this gradient was so cool. I really liked how it applied, and this was really illustrative of the fact that I should be using cold press paper. We are now here at the sink to see how well this will wash off given all of the texture that we've put into it. So I'm gonna just try with a soap and sponge like I normally would, and we'll see how it goes. Not terrible. Elapsed time on that was about a minute. So a minute's worth of scrubbing, and I'd say I got, I don't know, 85% of it off. A little better again. And I think that actually took off some of my texture, so I'm gonna stop doing it. And I think what I would end up doing with this is I would end up cutting each individual well here and utilizing the same color in the same well so that I can just transfer it over here to mix it. I'm going to go ahead and scuff up the rest of the pans here and here so that I can just have each color individually and then use the mixing space as designed on this palette. Another thing that I'm going to do is fill one of the wells with shavings from the crayons so that we can create kind of like a watercolor little pan here with one of the colors. That was a tip from MJ Pete 27. They said to put the shavings with a sharpener into the pan for the painting. To me, this defeats the purpose of having these because I have watercolor that comes in a liquid that I can just put in pans. So for me to use the crayons, like the fun part about using these to me is that they are a crayon and they're not a watercolor. So I will do this because it was a tip given to me. But personally, I think if you want watercolor in a pan, then you're better off just buying the liquid or a pre-filled pan, honestly. Again, this was pretty quick and easy. I was trying to be very conscious of where I was cutting so that I didn't have an accident happen, and the results were pretty effective. All right, now that I have gotten every well sufficiently roughed up, I'm just gonna color into each of these a little bit so that I've got pigment ready to go. This makes it really easy to bring them with you so that you have a place to put your water and to mix colors in addition to having the crayons with you. All right, so our palette is all set. We've got each color in here. We did have one more unfortunate casualty with our green. So now we've got 2 of the tips that have separated. However, I will say the ones that I fixed, like on the whole, have held up really well. So the water trick did work. These have been sitting for a few months because I made that video in March and it is now July. So these have been sitting for a good 3 months without me having used them. And so the repairs worked over that course of time. So that's really good to note. Now, what I'm going to do is take our casualties and I'm going to shave them down into a couple of the other wells to see if that also works. To do this, I grabbed another knife and I'm just gonna try to get some shavings off that way. I realize there is a lot of knife use in this video. I do not recommend trying this if you are not being supervised by an adult and are not an adult yourself. Additionally, I would like to note that none of the knives that I've used in this video will ever be used for food again. So they are not, they are now art supply knives. Just so everyone knows. I did just want to make that clear because sometimes it's not said and then you're left to make assumptions. Overall, this is working pretty good. I'm just rubbing this on the serrated knife tip, being very careful with my fingertips. There you can see kind of the results that we've gotten from the red. So I'm just gonna do the same thing with the green and we'll see how that works. So to both of them, I'm just gonna add a bit of water and then I'll let that dry. So hopefully they will basically dry down just like any normal watercolor into the palette. That is my hope here. And then we can just use it again, kind of like any other liquid watercolor that we would put into a palette. Now, I don't know what binder they use for these. So again, me personally, I would never do this just because I like the idea and convenience of having the crayons. However, we'll see if I feel better about the outcome of the painting with these, and then, you know, my opinion might very well change. We will see. This next tip comes to us from Pesto12601. They suggested using a hot air gun instead of water to fuse them. However, I actually don't have a hot air gun. The closest that I have is a hairdryer. However, I was thinking on some kind of like wax melt videos. And so given that these are also wax, I figured we might be able to use some fire for this. Again, kind of similar to my knife comment, we're gonna be very safe. I have removed the paper from the end of this and am only gonna heat this side, and then we'll try to fuse these back together. And we'll see if that holds better or worse than the water, which seems to hold over the course of the last few months. Right, that looks pretty good. I'm just gonna set that down. We'll try again on the green, and we'll try not to burn it. We'll try not to get the black char on it. Whatever these are made of, something is obviously burning to the point of like destruction. Like we're just making it carbon, so that happens. Let's see if we can get better on this one. Maybe I won't get it so close to the flame. Just keep it further away so that it's not directly in the flame. Well, that doesn't seem to be, well, no, it is. It's melting slightly and slowly. All right, that looks good. Melted. Just pop this back on, push tightly in for a couple of seconds, and we will let that one cool. Awesome. So we'll see how these work, but if that works better than the water, that might be a good tip. Otherwise, we did observe that water did work to meld some of these back together. Again, it's been like 3 months and they're still kicking. I was able to use them to draw on the palette, and am going to paint with them later tonight. Some of you suggested some other creators who are really good at using these that I could check out. The first one was SBK TME, who suggested Lindsay at the Frugal Crafter, who has a large range of these and is a very skilled user and has some tips and tricks. The other suggestions that I got were from Madamette J, that's a cool name. They suggested Melissa Martin, Katie Moody, and Sophie McPike, I think. And so I'm going to check out some of their videos and try to learn a little bit before heading out to try another painting with these. Hey, okay, so I just watched this video from Lindsay, the Frugal Crafter, and it was so helpful just to watch her technique. She used a variety of techniques. She would use her brush and just take pigment directly off of the crayon. She did the shavings method that we looked at earlier. She has just like sharpened a variety of them, and she's drawn directly on the paper and applied the pigment, so that was super helpful just from an application standpoint of learning. Additionally, the technique that she used was super helpful, how she layered and continued to add details. So I will continue to look at the other videos that were recommended to me, but I did just want to mention that this one was super helpful, and I will try to link it down below. So I've just watched some of this Katie Moody video, who is a creator I've never heard of, but she uses them completely differently than the previous video. So this is a great perspective on the versatility of this medium and how they can be used just on their own, excuse me, without water, which is another method that the person who recommended this creator told me to use. So I think that they probably have watched this creator and gotten that from them and have probably utilized that in their own practice, which I'm totally interested in doing. The other suggested artist that was suggested to me from D's3179 was Colin Woodward. So Colin is using a technique that is most similar to what I've done before, kind of using them more like watercolor. So really cool to see his illustration and how he pulls off the final aesthetic utilizing the technique that I am at least most familiar with. So had 3 great videos that were all very different techniques, and again just highlighting the versatility and the fun of these watercolor crayons. All right, I am back. I have watched a few YouTube videos and just wanted to check on the status of these guys. Let's try to get that to focus a little better here. So they are firmly attached. They feel cool. Obviously with this one, when I charred it a little bit too much, it did kind of make the tip look wonky, but it feels just as firmly attached as any of the ones that I did repair previously with water. So that's exciting. They're all back together now, and we can use them to try some of the tips that I learned in the YouTube videos that I watched. One of the things that I liked about Lindsay's video is that she went into the paper type that she was using and the paper type that she prefers to use. She had kind of a matte board from photograph or picture framing. And so while I don't actually have any of that, I do have a variety of different paper types to try out. So she had mentioned using kind of more of a toned paper. So I have a tan paper and a gray paper, both of which are sort of flimsy, but like I would say cardstock-ish texture, like slightly thicker than printer paper. I've got Bristol board, I've got my hot press paper, and my cold press paper. So I'm gonna try and paint this reference photo of the Epcot ball onto each of these and see which I like best, because the scene that I hope to be painting tonight will be more of a sunset, like the original piece that I did in my first video about these, so we can compare and contrast. I think that this was a really great exercise to teach me more about this medium and get familiar with the various techniques that I could use to create artwork with them. It was also helpful to see the difference in the paper types, the absorption of water, and learning just how much or how little water makes these function the best. So overall, a good exercise on the whole. So I tried to combine a few of the different techniques that I had seen utilized on some of the YouTube videos that I'd watched. So again, the concept for the paper came from that first video. This paper did not work very well. It warped a lot during the process. Part of that was likely that I was a little bit heavier handed with the water, as you can tell from the pigmentation in the black. The gray paper held up pretty well, and I think delivers the best result, with the exception of maybe that one. So gray paper, totally a contender. In this one, I tried to be the least heavy-handed with the water and tried to make sure that I was doing my strokes in the direction that I wanted to apply the water in, which was another suggestion I had gotten from the video. In this one, I ended up trying more of like a watercolor specific technique, as you can kind of tell from a lot of the texture. I think that I did end up finding something cool about applying these on wet paper. If you apply them wet, they actually do mix pretty well, and it's really cool. But overall, I like the aesthetic of this one the least. And then this one, I tried to mostly just use them without too much water. So like there's very little water applied here, and I pushed down a lot harder to get a lot more pigment on the paper. So that was a cool technique that I think worked pretty well for this, and I think I like the look of that one the best of all of them. So that was a fun exercise to try to keep, you know, the illustration consistent, but obviously with very differing results. So I think that we have played around enough that it is almost time to go on an adventure and see what we can paint in nature. But before that, I did just want to say a super quick thank you to everyone who watched and commented on my previous video. It means a lot to be able to do one of these videos because I got so many comments on that one. So I encourage you, if you see something interesting that I've done in the past or in any of my upcoming videos, if you are interested in a follow-up, the way to do it is to just comment things at me that I might not know. So technique suggestions, supply tech suggestions, other creator suggestions, anything of the sort I really appreciate, and really like kind of fostering a community here, and that's why I do this, is just to engage in artistic content with y'all. So thank you. Now let's go see what we can make. As you can see, I ended up at the beautiful lakefront, intending to paint the sunset. Although at this point it does not look like I'm ready for sunset. I did start the painting about 45 minutes before the sun was due to set, and during the painting process, I actually had a lot of fun kind of chasing the sunset, if you will. So I knew that I was time constrained and had a rough idea of how long this painting would take based on previous experience. And so as I started out, right, the sunset hadn't happened yet. So I went from a very blue sky, yellow sun, and slowly but surely the landscape that I was painting morphed as I went. And so when I started with the base colors, it was a lot lighter and bluer and more muted than it would become by the end, which was such a fun way to paint this. Truly, I was having a really great time exploring the morphing of the colors that I needed to use as they were appearing in the sky and as that sun was dropping. It was really cool. And if you're a sunset person like I am, I highly recommend kind of getting outside and just observing the way that the sky changes like this. It's so beautiful and always worth doing. I know that I paint sunsets probably more than your average person, but they're just fascinating to me. The way that the light changes every day in a different way is beautiful. No two sunsets ever seem to be the same, and I am constantly chasing the perfect sunset painting. I utilized every technique that had been suggested to me either by you guys or through the videos that I had watched. It was super helpful and really helped me create an artwork that I was happy with as I was sitting there admiring this gorgeous sunset and just taking everything in and having a truly relaxing time. As you can see, here is the piece that I created this evening in front of this magnificent sunset. And one suggestion that Lindsay had left on her video was to reflect upon whether the piece felt finished. It is now probably a week later, and I've come back to my desk to look at and finish this piece. So I like the concept of it. I like how it kind of looks from afar, but up close it doesn't look the way that I want. So I got a couple of really cool tips regarding the use of blending stumps and using the white crayon to blend. So we're gonna see how that works. At first glance, when considering a reference photo versus what I've got here, we appear to have a little bit too much contrast here with the purple, and it doesn't like fade up into the orange very well. So I'm gonna work on that first. Upon first use, I didn't really think that I was getting much out of the blending stumps, and so I decided to try to add a little bit of water, which helped immensely. These are typically used for graphite, so I think that they just really needed the water to be effective and obviously dissolve the pigment here. Then I added the white over top, which did really help to just kind of mute out some of the colors, and I went back over with the blending stump. Then, upon reflecting on my reference photo, I added some more color over the top, which was really Lindsay's suggestion, was you're not done until you feel like you're done. So if it feels unfinished, keep adding layers. And that advice worked really well with this piece. I am so happy that I went back and took that suggestion to heart and really worked on this from kind of a different perspective than just sitting there in front of the reference, having the reference photo and reapproaching it after the fact was really helpful, and I think developed this into a piece that I am super proud of and am yet again super grateful for all of your suggestions on. If you took the time to watch the previous video, which of course is linked below, if you took the time to watch this video, if you took the time to leave a comment, like, subscribe, or interact with in any way this video, please know that I appreciate you and am really grateful to have you along with me on this journey of becoming a better artist and learning more about the various art mediums that are out there. This one is particularly fun, and I hope that you enjoyed, and if you've used these or are interested, have any questions, etc., I would welcome your feedback and comments on this video as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will catch you in the next one. Bye.